Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bhedu Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvanivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururithyabhidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we will do the Gita Dhyanam before we begin the Gita class. So as you know, we have been doing the Nididhyasanam for half hour from 8 to 8:30 local time. And the original plan was to actually start the Gita class with actually doing Nididhyasanam meditation. But then in the meantime, I found an excellent introduction to the 8 yogic steps of Ashtanga Yoga, to the Samadhi, and also an enhancement called Nididhyasanam, which is not only the explanation of the 8 steps of the yogic meditation, but also enhances it with 7 additional steps of Vedantic meditation. And this is called Nididhyasanam, very nicely given in this book on Aparoksha Anubhuti with commentary by Swami Akhandananda. So I came across that and I thought this would be good to at least review that for this half hour. So last week we were looking over the Vedantic view of the first step in the Patanjali Yoga called Yama. And Yama, of course, means a sense of discipline of your senses and your mind and so on, bringing everything close together so that you have a certain control over all of your helping apparatus. So this is what it is. It's like, you have a car which is a instrument, and you need to control it, because otherwise it will just be going all over the place. The various pieces of advice given in the Gita Sutra is that all these 5 sense organs are like horses, and so you need to really bring them up so that you are in charge of it. So this is called Yama. And in the Vedantic view, as a prelude, the Vedantic view of the Ashtanga Yoga is similar, but with one new fact that you should keep in mind. And that is that so the Vedantic view of the Dhyanam, which is called Nididhyasanam, presupposes that you know Vedanta to a large extent. You don't know what you know what the process is, you know what it looks like, and more importantly, you know what the goal is. This is the important thing. And the goal, as you know, is that we need to understand that in the entire set of experiences of the world, including my own personality and so on and so forth, there is an underlying truth which is a person, which is called Brahman. And this Brahman is the one which is the pure consciousness, the Sakshi, which is the underlying content of everything that is going on in my life. This is the goal. And so, as we go through the various steps of the Vedantic meditation called Nididhyasanam, this fact should be kept front and center. So, now let us review the Vedantic view of Yama, only one of the steps that we're going to take, 15 different steps. And keep this fact in mind. So the Yama means that practice, that process where you display a discipline in your mind to recognize the fact that everything is Brahman. You see the distinction. In the yogic method of Yama, you are just making a disciplined effort to control your senses and mind. In Vedantic meditation, you do the same thing but keeping the view that all of the disciplinary steps that you're going through is intended to strengthen your vision, to develop a vision first, and to strengthen it as it is all Brahman. This is the beauty of this of this analysis of Vedantic vision given in Aparoksha Anubhuti by Swami Akhandananda. And once I began to see the pattern and the intent and so on, I really got a lot out of it, and I thought that I'd just share that with you as well. So let's explore this now. I'm just giving you the introduction to it. So, what it means in Vedantic Yama, Nididhyasanic, if I can coin a word, Nididhyasanic Yama is an attempt to see, a disciplined attempt to see that Paramatma as my own consciousness pervades everything. And so what it really means is, it is here and now as the present, and any thoughts any attitude, any thought that it is not here, it is not now, it is not I, it will be later, it used to be, it is not here, it will be there, are false. This is the attempt. Swami Akhandananda very nicely pointed out that this is the attitude where you say, there is something more to it than me. Others have it more of it. I have less of it. And it is elusive. All of these thoughts are wrong. All that it is elusive. I am not sure where it is. I don't know what I need to do. So all these are habitual thoughts that I have been living with all my life. That pattern of thinking has to change. It's not as though you see very clearly that you are it. That will come later in, towards the end of Nididhyasanam, hopefully. And if not, then the whole repeated thing. So that is the goal. But the Yama means that the first step is that really your attitude, that really the reality, the ananda, the consciousness is here and now. And I would say this I would now couple to the teachings by Swami Dayanand Ji about the issues associated with desire. So just bring this up. It's very consistent with this. Just some different words are used, but it's very consistent with this thought that what it is now. There will be nothing better than this. I mean, not in the sense that I will not improve my understanding. That's not what it is. But going back to an explanation of desire, which is a very beautiful thing to see in this context, the role of desire, the very swarupa of desire, the very nature of desire is to postpone. Is to postpone things. Because the very nature of desire is, I am not okay now, but I may be okay in the future if, then you can fill in the blanks, if I do this, if Ishvara showers his blessings to me, you can just fill in the blanks. But the nature of desire is, I am not okay now and I will be in the future. And once the desire comes up in your mind, and this comes up continuously, it's like flowing river, where my whole life, if you just analyze and think about it, don't, instead of just flow with the river, but come out and sit on the bank of the river and see the river flowing, you will find that my river of my life is nothing but a series of desires. Then I should do this, after this I will do that, I hope to do this, I'm not sure if I can do this. It takes various forms, but it all is postponement, 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 postponement. Here, Swami Dayanand Ji used to say this, it was very good. Look at it this way. Even hope is a form of desire. Of course. Because if you analyze hope, so both hope as well as hopelessness are forms of the desire. Because hopelessness means that also is not just a recognition of the reality of yourself. It just means I don't know what's going to happen. And I've given up. I don't know what to do. That just means that your reality is still not known. You don't know which way to turn. You don't know what is going to happen. And you're frustrated with it. So that's hopelessness. That is very clear. But even the opposite of that, this is an interesting thing. Look at the Vedantic view of this. Even the opposite of that, which is hope, which normally would be considered to be desirable, isn't it? Compared to two people who in one case display hopelessness and in the other case is very optimistic, has a very positive frame of mind. Yeah, I think this will happen. I think this is going to do it. Both of them are forms of desire that essentially deny you the fact that you are okay the way you are. Even though your experience is, now I'm not okay the way I am, we understand that. It's not pulling a wool over the eyes or anything. But that conclusion that I am not okay the way I am is all that requires is to remove the curtain of truth from it. And until you are engaged in removing the curtain, instead of what I would say is kicking the ball down, the attempt to understand that you are Brahman, everything is okay, everything is pervaded by you, eventually this will become very clear. The curtain that is hiding that fact from me is going to go if I make an attempt at it. But the basis of the attempt should be the truth that I am okay. That is the Vedantic Yama. I hope I've been able to convey this to you. So the difference is, it is not just disciplining the mind. Of course it is disciplining the mind. Of course it is disciplining the senses and transactions and your behavior and all that. But with a very clear basis that eventually, even now and more clearly, I will see that I am the Brahman. This is the Vedantic view of Yama. And here Swami Akhandananda very nicely points out that this is what I was talking about earlier with Swami Dayananji's explanation of the desire. Leading a life of desire has become a habit. You see, this is the thing that we have to see. Leading a life of desires has become a natural habit. This is where we are. You don't pause to understand who you are. You just go with the flow of it. And to arrest it and to bring it all up to an examination is what Vedantic Yama is. So here Swami Akhandanandaji gives a very simple example. He says, I know when you have youngsters in the home, you drink tea or coffee in the morning. There is no reason for youngsters to drink tea or coffee in the morning. That is not natural. Okay? So when they grow up, it's not as though they get up and say, Mom, Dad, I need to have some coffee. They don't. They wake up and then go to school and so on. But soon they see that there are some advantages of if you're mentally tired, then the coffee or tea perks you up a little bit. Then they say, can we also have it? And the parents have to decide on that. And so in the beginning you kind of like it. And then you begin a habit of drinking tea or coffee at a particular time. Now, this habit controls you. And so imagine a youngster going up to high school and then to college. Now it has become such a habit that if you don't have a cup of tea or coffee, you really miss it. It has never happened to me, but other people have told me that if I don't have a tea or coffee, I develop a headache. I too actually drink tea in the morning. I used to be, for a long time, I would have 2 cups of tea. And now I have 1 cup of tea. I do have it in the morning, so I would have to admit that. But in the way I do this, I dedicate to a pursuit of Ishvara. My study, my analysis, my thinking, my meditation, and all that feels better with 1 cup of tea. And occasionally, if I don't have it, I'm okay with it also. And so here's the thing. So this is what is talking about the Yama. Swami Akhandanandaji was saying about Yama, is that in the beginning, it is not a habit. So like worrying about the future, having desires as a basic way of leading the life becomes a habit. And I remember Swami Viditatmanandaji pointed this out. He gives this story very, very often. When he was when he was working in New York, he was an engineer, and a chemical engineer in New York. And he would have tea several times a day. And what he would find is that it became such a habit to him that if the tea was not served, he would really not feel good. And finally it occurred to him that this is slavery. Why am I being a slave to drinking tea? Or coffee, if you want to substitute that. And he decided, I'm just going to give it up. And it probably was a little difficult at first. But now Swami Viditatmananda, he used to come and stay with us for the last 15 years. And my wife and I would, in the beginning, ask him, Swamiji, can I bring you a cup of tea? And he says, no. And he used to recite the story to me, that finally I was so bothered by having dependence on tea that I decided I'm just going to free myself. And he says, that's the best thing that I did. I don't drink tea or anything like that in the morning. And so Swami Akhandanandaji gives this example. He says that really the tendency of the mind to always be postponing things for the future and never confronting the beautiful truth of who you are today, now, at this point, is the absence of Yama. And to reverse it, to see what's going on, and see that the desire is just keeping you from understanding the truth about yourself, is Yama. Beautiful, very nicely done, very insightful, really speaking. And again, it's an attempt. It is not the final one yet. One should not get the feeling, oh, I cannot do Yama. No, even as an attempt to do this is Yama. Let's see, one other thing. Let me take my phone out to see what the time is. Okay, it's 8:25 almost. I was thinking of even starting Niyama, but I won't do that. But I would like to end the section on Yama with one last thing that Swami Akhandananda pointed out. He says that Yama is best done on the basis of a sense of sameness called samatvam in Bhagavad Gita. Samatvam. So Sri Krishna uses this word samatvam. Samatvam means with no biases. No biases, no likes and dislikes, but just a certain balance is called samatvam. So he says that Swami Akhandananda says that Yama, the very source of Yama is samatvam. And so Swamiji gives that example about himself, Swami Akhandananda. He says, what I find is that there are certain people who are students who address me with a great honor, and then others who are much more casual about it. And he says that I don't have to do that anymore consciously, but in the beginning I had to consciously feel that both are the same. Somebody gives me a great honor in addressing me. That's because they have a certain samskaras and they already are cognizant of how to behave with the Swami. And there are others who don't have that samskara. Doesn't mean that they are bad people or anything like that. They just don't have the background. But my view of looking at both of them should be the same. So he says that samatvam is very important in the conduct of the Vedantic Yama. He goes even further. He says that supposing one is ill with some illness, there also samatvam should be used. How? Because you find that in taking birth in this life, illnesses is part of it. And illness is not part of me, but it's part of what I have taken myself to be, which is the body-mind complex. And so he says samatvam there means So I had a problem, something has come up, some virus has entered my mind, virus has entered my body rather, and it'll go. I was the same person before the virus attacked me, and I will be the same person, hopefully, unless it's COVID and the Delta variant and all those kinds of things that can take my life away. That's a separate thing. But for most cases, illnesses will come and go, but I will remain the same. This is samatvam. So all of this fuels the process of Vedantic Yama. So I think we are done with that, and we will start on the next step, Niyama, starting with the yogic Niyama, the Patanjali Niyama, and then move on to the Vedantic Niyama next time. So with that, I close this section of the class, and we will now begin the study of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's start with the Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha Padakramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidusura suragadaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Om. So, based on the feedback, your feedback on the question that I had asked you as to how much Sanskrit you could follow, and a number of you have written back to me. I appreciate that. So my conclusion is that we will continue to feature Sanskrit, but in a slightly diminished role. I don't find that many people that understand. From the feedback that I got, there were like 3 or 4 people who could really follow the Sanskrit as I would enunciate it and so on fully. Many of you said that you could follow it to a certain extent. So anyway, based on that, what I've decided to do is that I would continue to feature it as I had promised in the very beginning when I started this class. I'm not going to abandon it, but perhaps do it in a fashion where, so here's my goal. I wrote to Anne Shiri Greenbaum, who had also given me this feedback as to how much she can follow and so on. And I wrote to her, and this is what I would like to communicate to you also, that my goal will be that the conceptual approach to understanding the Shankarananda's Bhashya or Vyakhya in this case will be the baseline. In addition to that, I might add some references to the Sanskrit sentences and also especially the sentences from the references to the Shastra, which are all in Sanskrit. So that I will point out from time to time. But the opposite will not be true, where you feel that you are not getting everything. You will be getting everything, but if you know Sanskrit, you'll be getting something more than that. Anyway, this is what I was thinking of it. All right, so let's go. So what we did last week, we are doing, as you know, chapter 2, verse number 12. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhipaha nachaivana bhavishyamah sarve vayam ataf param. This is the shloka that we are examining. So where we had said was that in the first line, Sri Krishna says, he segments it into three parts. He says, there was never a time when I was not there, and nor there will be any time where I'll not be there. I am not transitory. This is me. The whole Vishwa, the whole Shrishti, the entire cosmos is me. And I am not something which is going to go away. I am the very basis of the whole thing. And so there's no question that I am time bound. If I am born, that means that there was something superior to me because I came later. That's not the case. And it should be understood by you that everything that comes up and is retained and is dissolved in something, that thing is the truth. That doesn't change. So Arjuna, don't you see that? This was the first argument, and we went over this last week. Now Arjuna says, yes, I get it. I hadn't thought of it that way, but now that you explain that you have to be there in order to create or to dissolve or to manage, you have to be there. This I get, but I don't understand how I as a jiva who clearly was born, and so clearly I'm going to die, as these other people as well, how can I be always there? Because you've used the same qualities for both of us. This I don't get. So this is so this is just to give you the reference to the let's see, I need to really read this. Yeah. Okay. So sorry about that. I have to make sure that I'm connected. And so if you look at the middle of the second paragraph, Okay, here it's given on page 41, and in some of the other books maybe later on. So the first paragraph of Shankarananda ji's Vyakhya on number 12 was, of course, Ashocyan Anvashocastvam. That's the first paragraph. Then the second paragraph was the one that started with Aham Tatpadartha Paramatma Sarvagyaha Sarvashakti. This is the second paragraph. So in the second paragraph, which is a very long paragraph, excuse me. By the way, the commentary on these shlokas is one of the longest in this particular shloka. Normally it wouldn't be this long, but this is exceedingly detailed. Anyway, going back to the second paragraph, in the middle of the second paragraph you will find Nanu. And Nanu, of course, means either a doubt or an objection. And because Arjuna is a student, you cannot say it's an objection. Because an objection means an equal person who disagrees with your dissertation. That's how the objection is. I don't agree with what you're saying. What are you talking about? That's an objection. Pardon me. But a version of that objection is from the standpoint of a student who still doesn't understand, but gives you the benefit of the doubt, and he says, I don't understand, I don't get it. So here the Nanu is really more of a doubt rather than an objection. We should understand that. In all cases, except when you are bringing in some different religious view and so on. But here it's a doubt. It says, so I'll read it a little bit. Nanu Parameshwarasya Swatantrasya Kalatrayepi Tava Sadbhava Astu Mama Katham Martyasya Nityatvam Siddhyati. So it means that I can understand that for a Parameshwara Nityatvam, the non-changingness is a reality. This I get. But for me, Mama Katham Martyasya Nityatvam Siddhyati. One who is Martyaha, Marana Yogyaha. Martyaha means, Marana Yogyaha means, I am fit for dying. All human beings are Martyaha. They are the right vehicle for passing on. So this is an interesting thing in India. Usually you don't say that person died. And even in the West now, I don't know since when, they say he passes away. My father passed away. This is a very beautiful expression, really. Because Martya means one who is finished. No one is finished. No one. Our form may change, but the person passes from one stage to the other. So here, so anyway, going back to this, so Arjuna asks, what about me? So here, Sri Krishna, in answering this doubt by Arjuna, because Arjuna is saying that he's distinguishing between Parameshwara and Martyaha. He says it's okay for you, I can get it, but doesn't apply to me. So I don't understand your logic that was always there. So Sri Krishna bases his answer on the same thing throughout, which is the distinction between Vachyartha and Lakshyartha, which we have gone through in the last few classes. Just to refresh it very quickly, Vachyartha means when the finger is given to someone, that means obviously I'm talking to a jiva. You're the one who's asking me the question, like somebody says, sir, how can you say that so on and so forth? Then you'll say, all right, let me answer your question. So I point out that finger to him or her and not to that person. So when I point the finger, obviously I have to articulate based on what this person is saying. This is called Vachyartha. It's exactly like the room space. If a room space had the consciousness, Chidakasha, then he said, me, the room space, I want to go be bigger. So when I address the room space, this is Vachyartha. But really speaking, no matter who I talk to, the Lakshyartha remains the same. In other words, the Akasha, the Mahakasha, Maha-Akasha rather than Ghata Akasha remains the same. So that is the basis of the answer of Sri Krishna. Because that he kept right in center. And so all his explanation, all his advice, all his clarity, all of his conclusions, all of that are based on Lakshyartha. But the Lakshyartha is not yet understood by Arjuna. But the basis has to be the truth. The truth may not be understood, that's a different thing altogether. But you cannot make the lack of truth as your centerpiece. You may tolerate it until the truth is reached. So anyway, so the basis of his answer is Lakshyartha. It's not the personality, but the person behind it. He says, in answering to Arjuna, that what about me? He says, I find no distinction between you and I. How can you say that? Because he says, examine your own life. Just examine your own life. So what do you mean by examining my life? So what's going to happen? He says, don't you see you were a baby at some point. Then you became a toddler. And then you became a teenager. And then you became an adult. Does the adult look anywhere like a baby? No. This is why we keep pictures of babies in our young ones in our home. Oh, how cute he looks. Just yesterday, in fact, one of my wife's niece had her 30th birthday. And so, this is the normal thing now on birthdays. People give pictures to the WhatsApp, all the previous pictures and so on. It's a very beautiful thing, really speaking. And it's just that I don't have the time, so I never send any pictures. All I say is happy birthday with a couple of exclamation marks and so on. I'm done. But people have been posting pictures and so on. So there was a picture posted yesterday where my two granddaughters, who are now practically adults, they are both close to 5'10". They are taller than me. And this picture was when they were two young girls. I think one was like 2.5, the other one was 4, along with this niece. Totally different, has no one. We just liked it. We says, oh my God, they were so small. And now look at them, so tall. We have to look up to them rather than look down. Totally different. There's no connection at all. So Krishna tells Arjuna, don't you see that? Arjuna says, yes, I see that, but so what? Then Krishna says, don't you see? Basically, you are the same person who was a baby who is now an adult. Don't you see that? How can you not be the same person? Because the very fact one says, when I was young, if you analyze this exclamation by someone, when I was young, that proves you were never not there. How does it prove I was never not there by saying I was young? Okay, so now let's just look at a segment of this life. Where you were previous to it and what are you going to be in the, if there is any next life, leave that aside. Let's just look at the segment of this life, right? Okay. Don't you see that you are the same person throughout this life? Despite all the changes that are happening to you. Baby, adulthood, teenager. And not only that, and by the way, this is all given in, this is Shankarananda ji's commentary. So I'm not going to go through, as I mentioned to you, that I'm just going to touch on the concepts rather than the details. That's what I would like to do. So all of this is given in here, okay? And if you have the knowledge of Sanskrit, or if you are a Hindi speaking person and you can read the Hindi translation, which I highly recommend. Of course, it's going to take a long time because this is not easy Hindi. It is highly Sanskritized Hindi, but very beautiful. So you're welcome to do that, but I'm just going to jump on from concept to concept. So here in this discussing this concept meaning that in this life itself, you have to be the same person, unchanging, for you to take on all these various forms. You could not take up different forms until you are the same person. Don't you see that, Arjuna? And not only that, Krishna says, within one day, forget about the long term flow of a person. You know, it's interesting. I mean, I have no idea how quickly I have grown old. Honestly. When I look at and this is really best done if you look at if I look at a picture of myself in a photograph, supposing there's a family photograph, and my first thought is, my God, is that me? I cannot believe how old I look. And even if I look at myself in the mirror, it's very interesting. If you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't really look at yourself objectively. You always have some kind of a subjectivity about it. You may say, I've got this gray hair and so on, but your idea of who you are is not the way others look at you. So anyway, I am just amazed. I feel the same way. I have the same mind. I have the same observation. Here, I was reading just a commentary by Swami Akhandananda. So I'm just rediscovering the books of Swami Akhandananda. I'm pretty much done with Swami Maheshananda's book. I've written to those people and saying, are there some new books? Some new things? Nobody has replied it to me yet. So, but then in the meantime, I started to, because my understanding of Vedanta through highly Sanskritized mother tongue, which is Hindi for me, has been a boon to me. And I really highly recommend, instead of I wish I hadn't, I overstudied Sanskrit to a point because I was thinking of really doing everything. It's useful to me. But I don't have to. As long as I understand the Sanskrit vocabulary, grammar, etc., my resorting to Hindi has been a wonderful thing. So these days I have a whole set of books from Swami Akhandananda ji, so I'm just going through that now. And in reading that, in one of those, there is a book that I'm reading which is just phenomenal. Love to share that and things with you. A couple of the things I've learned from there, just absolutely mind-blowing. Anyway, this book that I'm reading is called Satya Ki Khoj Mein. Satya Ki Khoj Mein means in the pursuit of truth. That's the meaning of the title of the book. So it's a kind of like a satsang, question answers, and very nicely published. Around the same time when I went to the PRC in the early 80s. So this book is also 1984 or so. Amazing. So there he says that the only difference between average person and a Rishi is this. Both of them are looking at the world. Thoughts, experiences, transactions, both of them. No difference so far. But an ordinary average human being does not go into a pursuit of the cause of the experiences. Whereas the Rishi does. In other words, an average person is involved with what is called drishya, what is seen. This is exactly what our life is. If you look at, just examine how you are living, how you are behaving, what your thoughts are, it is all drishya, 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 drishya. You are always talking, oh, today I read this news today, drishya. What's happening in India? Drishya. Liz Cheney got defeated. Drishya. What is going to happen now in this midterm election? Drishya, everything is drishya. What did I have to eat? Drishya, drishya, drishya. Different kinds of things. This is what we are involved in. And my conclusions, my thinking, my pursuits all have to do with combinations of drishya alone. Isn't it? Whereas in the case of a rishi, what happens is the drishya is just a step of the ladder to understand drik. This has to be seen. See, there is always a drik and drishya. In fact, there cannot be a drishya without the drik. So the only difference between an ordinary human being and a rishi is that you don't take that step to understand the reality or the lack thereof of drishya with respect to the drik. That's all. So they also look at drishya, but they look at drishya as a way to indicate how drik works. And if you do that, if you're able to follow the methodology of switching from drishya to drik, amazing things happen. You are able to understand God, you are able to understand yourself. Incredible, you become immortal. This is what it is. This is what Swami Khandananda was pointing out. It's a beautiful thing. So what happens, going back to this verse, this shloka of the Gita, Krishna is saying, don't you understand? Arjuna, don't you see? Not don't you understand. He's saying, don't you see that you cannot be having all these changes? All the changes are drishya. So the lakshartha is just like telling a room space, don't you see that you are the total space? There's no change in you. Don't you see that? So the room space will say, oh, no, I don't see it. Well, see it. Because you seem to be troubled about your own, what's happening to you and so on. I understand it. And I can give you some palliatives. But really, if you want to go to the very bottom of it, you have to go to the lakshartha. So similarly here Krishna says, no, it's not just only I am impervious to all the changes, you are too. And so look at it, that you cannot be the changing aspects of your life without you can understand the changeless aspect of you. Changes are the drishya and the changeless is the drik. See that. So it is not just saying that I am changeless, you are changeless too. And furthermore, he looks at another dimension. And that is the three different stages of during the day. That you are also the seer of the dream, same consciousness that sees the dream as a drishya, same consciousness that sees all the waking changes that are happening, same consciousness, and the same consciousness that sees nothing, just rests in deep sleep. Same one. So where is the change? I don't understand. I can't even make you changing even if I want to. So Krishna says, no, that's not true that only I am. So this is the second part of that. And then of course he says, not only you and I, but all these other people. That's the third part of the first line. Janadipaha. Janadipaha means all these leaders. I mean, that's all they're seeing in front of them. Their armies are a little bit farther away. Their leaders are in the front. And saying that you're afraid, in fact, what Arjuna is concerned with is not the average soldier that he doesn't know, but it's the leaders who are his own classmates, his teachers, his family members, cousins. Those are all leaders, they are the Janadipaha. And Krishna says the same thing is true for them. Because it's very obvious, if it is true for you, you are also one of the jivas. So that completes it. It is all three of them are changeless. So this is what is pointed out. So here, in just as a reference to the Sanskritam now, so we talked about the Nanu, the sentence of Arjuna. So the answer to that, soon after that, is Na, Tvamiti. He says, Tvam pada laksharthasya jatu kadachit na asit iti na kintu asit eva. So I've already talked about that from a Lakshartha standpoint, there is no question that there's no birth for you and so on. And then he explains this, Atita anagata deha utpatyadishu jagradadishu iva tvam asya iva yatha jagrati tishtata eva tava swapna sambandhaha. So he says, just like there is an intimate connection. Intimate connection here means the same adhara, a same basis between Jagrat Avastha and Swapna Avastha. One changes to the other. It's like a costume change, but you remain the same. Don't you see that, Arjuna? No, he didn't say you see, but he says giving you the. Okay, then another important concept. Okay, so let's make a neat note of this. Very important. This is something that one should. I think you already know all of this, but just to underscore this. So further down, well, let me give you, I think the way I'm going to do this, I hope, is to present the concepts to you and then give the reference in Sanskrit. Yeah, I think this will be better. Where is the concept? He says, listen, so what concept is what? We've already talked about it, is that you cannot be the same person because otherwise you could not say when I was young. Because then it will be a different person if you are now. You couldn't say this when I was young, but you say yeah when I was young. So that means that you are the same person who was young who is no longer young. So this is the concept we've already gone through. Then there is another concept which we are going to go into, which is the following. He says, don't you see, there are actions in our life and we accrue the results of those actions, karma and karma phala. Yeah, I see that. Okay. Also, I should point out that, as you know by now, Vedanta points out very clearly that the karma phala, the results of the action, have two components. One is what is called drishya phala, and the other one is called adrishta phala. Drishta phala, sorry, not drishya, but drishta phala, and the other one is adrishta phala, meaning, don't you see that all actions have two components as the result? One is the immediate visible result, and the other one is the invisible result that may come later. As you know, I won't go into the details of it, but what it means is that there is some stored result that will come later to complete the picture of having a result of a proper karma, a proper result of a karma. So, for instance, that to look at a positive examples, supposing somebody goes in for a surgery, heart surgery, bypass surgery, and the doctor tries very, very hard and really just goes over and beyond in doing that surgical procedure. Despite his efforts, the patient dies. So now the doctor, you can say the doctor was unable to save the patient. This is called drishta phala. But the fact that the doctor spent so much of his efforts in trying to save, and in fact this came up with some insights on what not to do, gaining some experience for the next time, is he not a good doctor? Of course he is a very good doctor. And should he not be rewarded for his dedication and his insights and his experience? Of course. And when will that happen? That will happen over the course of time. So this is called adrishta phala. Similarly, the opposite example of that is that you may, this happens practically every day, that somebody commits a crime, kills someone, and goes scot-free. So the drishta phala is nothing happens. Adrishta phala is he will pay for it sooner or later. So anyway, the next concept we are talking about, this is what Shankarananda ji points out, is that don't you see that the actions and the results are there in this life, visible for everybody, for everyone to see? Yep. If you are a changing person, can these concepts be applicable to you? What do you mean by that? That means you did something, but you were not there to get the results of it. Or you didn't do it, but you got the results. Is that sensible? Is that how this world was supposed to be? Is that how it is? No. there will be a complete violation. There is a Sanskrit term called Sankaraha. Not Shankaraha, but Sankaraha. Sakara. So Sankaraha means complete mix-up. There's no order to it, no nothing. That's what will happen if there is no commonality. And in fact, this fact, now we can bring in, previously we were talking about your sameness only in this life. Remember, we were talking about a straight line of this life. Your baby, your so on and so forth. But really you have to now extend it to say, in any life. I mean, this is exactly what we say is that really the death, there is no such thing as death. There is no such thing as death. There is very little difference between deep sleep and death. Very little difference. I mean, there is a big difference because you have to change your families, you have to change your mother, father, etc. Yeah, there is a big difference. But in the scheme of things, there is very little difference. You go on to some next life. So this is just a change of costumes, that's all that happens, as Gita will talk about in more detail. So this concept of sameness is not just in this life, it remains throughout. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out is that this fact that there is sameness in the previous life and this life and next life applies even more to the concept of karma and karma phala. Because supposing you die before you were given the results of your previous karma. So like the concept here is that supposing somebody killed and was never caught and he died. So then you can say he escaped it. No, because that means that the whole order of the universe will be violated. There will be no Ishvara, there is some parallel truth based on death and so on and so forth that will violate the very principle of karma and karma phala. That doesn't happen. More important than that, this is the interesting thing. Someone may get karma phala without having done it. And you know, this is exactly what we find actually happening. You find that a baby is born with some severe physical or mental problem. And you wonder, oh my gosh, what did this poor baby has done? There's something wrong with this picture. There is nothing wrong with the picture. Because if you say there is something wrong with the picture, that means that some bad karma phala has come to this person without having done the karma. So now let me point out, this is a very important conceptual, this is done in Vedanta continuously, you will see this. Let me give you the Sanskrit for this now. I've already explained the concept to you and I've got a couple more things to say, but this is pretty much done. So, first of all, he says, so here you will see this here, he says, Tataha Tadrik Vidha Karma Kartuhu Tava Astu Eva Dehantareshu Sadbhavaha astu anyatha. Now comes the important one. Kritahani akritabhya agama prasangat. So see if you can locate that. Anyatha sadbhava astu anyatha kritahani akritabhya agama prasangat. This is the segment which is important. Kritahani. Kritahani means there is a violation of what is already done. There is a hani. Hani means a dissolution or something wrong of what is done. It means it disappears. Without having the karma phala, the karma disappears. It's called kritahani. Or akritabhyam agama. Akritabhya agama means it's something done without having done it. That prasanga will come. Prasangat means that's the fifth case, which is logic. That prasanga means that concept will have to be accepted. Not the right concept. That doesn't happen that way. So for that reason also, Krishna says, you, my dear Arjuna, are the same person. Why? Because you could not be the same person without having all these changes that are happening to you. Concept number one. Concept number two, there will be kritahani akritabhya aprasangat. That means that the whole rule is the wrong word, whole order of the universe where karma and karma phala, that would have to be thrown out of the window if you were not the same person. So going back to the example of a baby that is born with a problem, you can sympathize and you can have daya towards the person, but you cannot have frustration, cannot have some kind of a question. This is exactly when somebody dies, we are given this advice by our teachers that you can grieve, but you should not exceed the grief with saying, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on. No. We know exactly what is going on, and this is appropriate for the grief because there was a change in friendship and camaraderie and so on, which is worth grieving. But to say what's going on is you don't have to extend that. You shouldn't extend that. So similarly here also, when a child is born with a problem, it is important to have daya and care. All of that is there. But it should not extend to saying, how could this have happened? Because that baby is going through some karma phala from the previous life. So anyway, so this is Krishna's talking to him, and all this is given in great detail in all of these. I won't go in through all of that. If you want to. And so the only other thing I would do is towards the end of this paragraph, he begins to summarize. He says, etena. Etena means by all this logic, tvam padarthasya atmanaha dehendriyadibhyaha bhinnatvam nityantvam cha suchitam bhavati. So he says, by all of this explanations that we have gone through, it becomes obvious that the Atma is different from your Lakshyartha Atma, is different from all the Vachyartha personality, and so therefore really nothing really changes. You are the same as I am. Not only that, ime janadipascha na asit na iti kintu tvam padarthatva avisheshat trishu kaleshu asan eva. He says, similarly, not only you and I, but all these other people also, in all the three periods of time, which is Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti, and through their entire life, entire everything with their entire existence is changeless. They remain the same. Okay? All right. Now, in some way, comes an important new concept. Okay? I'm looking at the time, it's 9:25. I hope I think I should be able to finish it. Might go over a few minutes, please, up to 9:35 maybe. Very important concept. He says, so in order to bring this concept about, there is a kind of like a strong, you can almost say a doubt which is turning into objection. Strong doubt. So, no, I don't get this at all. How can you say that? So this is given in the Nanu, in the next paragraph. The next paragraph starts with Nanu Atma Bhede Pramana Abhavaha iti yaduktam tad atisahasam. He says, I'm sorry, I should really bring in another sentence before I give you this, so I should have done that. So before giving you this strong doubt, I'd like to go back to the very last sentence of the previous paragraph, which we already did, but I didn't do the last sentence. This is an important one. The last sentence says, Jaradipaha iti avidya vritti bhedena bahuvachanam natu atma bhedena tat bhede pramana abhavat. So here Sri Krishna is saying, in the case of the Janadipa, all these people, including you can say here also, you are also one of the Janadipa. You are also a leader like all these other people. So this logic applies to all of you. Janadipaha iti avidya vritti bhedena bahuvachanam. You can say that the plurality is based on differences created by ignorance. This is what Sri Krishna is saying. He says that, they all look different from each other. One of them is a Pandava, one of them is a Kaurava, one is fighting with each other. All these things are going on in our life. All of these differences are due to avidya. They are due to ignorance alone. So once again, Janadhipaha iti avidya vritti bhedena bahuvachanam. Bahuvachanam means that the plurality is based on avidya vritti, the thoughts arising from ignorance. Natu atma bhedena, not because of the non-changingness of their reality, their selves, which is the same. Tat bhede pramana abhavat. So this is an important thing which forms the basis of a strong doubt by Arjuna. He says, Tat bhede pramana abhavat. Yat bhede atma bheda. He says there is no difference between the Atma because there is no proof of their differences. Why are there no differences in the Atma? Because there is no proof of it. We don't see the differences, we don't see a proof of their differences. Everything has to be based on something which is provable. When the eyes see someone, the eyes become the proof. Yes, I saw that person. I heard that person. Yes. But there is no proof that there are differences in the Atma. This is how the last paragraph ended. And you know what? This is how I'm going to end also, because this next set of doubts and the next set of answers to those doubts is a very important and rather it requires some proper time to it, and it will not really be possible to do that. So given that it's already 9:31, I think I'm going to postpone this, and I will start the next class with the doubt of the next paragraph, which is Nanu Atma bhede pramana abhavaha iti yaduktam tad atisahasam. This is a very, let's just look at this one sentence before we end. So here, if it is Arjuna talking, he says, wait a second. What you say doesn't make any sense to me. What do you mean what you say? What did I say? You said that in Atma Bheda there is no pramana. There is no proof for Atma Bheda. So this is what he's saying. He says, Nanu Atma Bhede, in the subject matter, here it is Sati Saptami. No, it is Saptami, not Sati Saptami, but just Saptami. Saptami means a seventh case, which means Vishaya Saptami. In the subject of Atma Bhede, in the differences of Atma, with respect to the subject of the differences in the Atma, Pramana Abhavaha, you say there is no proof, iti yad uktam, one that you say, tat ati sahasam. This is a very interesting word. Ati sahasam. Sahasam means there are various ways. I have to find the right adjective. So normally, sahasam means courage. 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 Sahasam means co Courage. This is the vision that I have, that suppose there is a group, there is a big meeting going on. Okay, big meeting going on. And lots of people, all intelligent people, all very thoughtful and so on. And they're all discussing something and kind of everybody's agreeing with them. One person sitting on that meeting raises his hand and says, "Can I please say something?" He'll say, "Yes." He says, "All the things that you're discussing are totally baseless." So, 500 pairs of eyes look at him. And supposing his wife is sitting next to him, or his friend or somebody, and he says, are you sure? What courage? This is called sahasam. Sahas means courage. And another shade of that is, how dare you? How dare you say this? So this Arjuna says, with due respect to, that's why this use of this word in this context is, that itself is a courage. So the Arjuna says, how can you say that, Krishna? I can't believe you said that. And so this is how it ends. And why is he saying that? And what is the answer to that? This we will see in the next class. So with that, I think it's already 9:36. So I will end the class. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Is how dare you? You said there is no proof. So nice to see all of you. It's wonderful. I've noted this is what I normally do when I'm silent. I'm just going through all the names that appear, and I know there are many who don't they're watching on television or something, and so they cannot really do the chats. I only see, I think, about 34, 35 people. But anyway, it's so nice to see you all. Barbara, it's good to have that comment from you. I think that many of you who are yoga teachers, and I was thinking about that when I took up this topic and when I was reading this in the Aparoksha Anubhuti, that would be very nice to give this bridge, so to speak, between yoga and Vedanta in some very concrete terms that one can sort of put your arms around it. So I'm very happy to see that that comment from you. I also got similar comments on an email from Anne Shri the other day, so that makes me really feel good that we are reaching out to some of the people that know yoga and Patanjali yoga and so on. And so good to see that. All right, good. I don't see any other questions per se, but so wonderful that you are here. And just to do a commercial for that 2-class segment that I started on Anasakti. So next Tuesday, we will do the ending of a version of Swami Viditatmananda's talk on Anasakti, and if you have a chance, I think you'll gain some insight from that as well. So we'll see you. And otherwise, okay, we'll see you next time. Hari Om.